This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, welcome to a new edition of Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenawalt, Senior Fellow at the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined by my co-host, as usual, Mara Donnelly. Mara, welcome to the show.
Hello, Charlie.
Why, I don't know, have you seen this new book yet called This Town by Mark Leibovich?
No, but I'm intrigued by the full title of it.
Yes,
Two Parties and a Funeral.
Yes, it's interesting. He is the editor of the New York Times Magazine, but he has alienated both sides of Washington, and how he describes Washington can be used to describe most state capitals as well. He essentially says the major line of delineation in Washington is not between the Republicans and the Democrats, but it's between those who are in office and those who are out of office.
Oh.
And he talks about the fact that most legislative battles are won by, are you ready? Hold on.
I am.
The people with the most lobbyists and the highest priced lobbyists.
Oh, there's a shocker.
Isn't it a shocker? Although many of the people across the land, I guess, haven't realized this. And one person who has realized this, who's fighting the good fight day in, day out in the trenches in Harrisburg, is our guest today. He's a guest we've had before, but there are new developments over the horizon, and we thought it was important to have him back before the new year. And that is our good friend, Steve Hicks, the president of APSCUF, the faculty union of all the faculty for the 14 state universities. Welcome back, Steve. So nice to have you back.
Well, it's good to be here, Charlie. Despite the circumstances and the topic we're going to talk about, I think it's always good to be here and have an opportunity to discuss the issues with you.
Well, the last time we were together, we were hopeful that we wouldn't perhaps be talking about the subject matter that is before us today.
Right.
And that involves the word retrenchment.
Right.
Mara?
Well, I think for our viewers, let's start with some of the basics.
All right.
Let's start with Retrenchment 101.
Okay. Retrenchment is a word of French derivation meaning pruning, which is used in academia for laying off faculty members, and particularly laying off faculty members who have tenure. Most of your viewers are familiar with tenure, which is often used as a pejorative term. But tenure is something to a faculty member like Charlie and I is important because it provides us the opportunity to have academic freedom and to be able to investigate whatever topics we want from whatever angle we want without fear of losing our job. So retrenchment does away with your tenure and costs you your job. It would be like a furlough for someone else, but of course there's always that tenure piece that means we have kind of a different safety net involved.
So we're hearing that word a lot now because there are cuts looming. Can you tell us what's going on?
Well, yes. Our collective bargaining agreement says by October 30th, the management of the universities have to provide letters to those tenured people who are not going to come back next year. In October, we received 45 letters across the system, 5 different universities. So we have a large number of people, the largest number in history, who look to be out of a job May 30th of next year. So part of our responsibility at this point is to find them another job while also engaging with the administration at the universities to try to get them to change their mind and determine that they really do have the financial resources to continue the faculty members forward.
Are there going to be any other cuts besides the tenured professors?
Thank you for asking more, because that's not really the big number. Our concern is the large number of temporary faculty who will be losing their jobs too, and that's been a trickier number to figure out. The announcement at Edinburgh University was that there'd be 34 temporaries losing their jobs. At the other institutions, it's been more about monetary savings than head count. So it's harder to put a number on it, but we expect that there may be as many as 150 fewer faculty on the campuses, 5 campuses, and what happens at the other 9 is a little bit more indefinite, but those 5 will probably lose about 150 people in terms of the faculty.
Steve, how are students affected by these cuts?
You know, that's always a tricky question to figure out, you know, direct causation. But just the number one thing is the change in programs. Cutting faculty means some programs are going to disappear, so students aren't going to have the opportunity to major in, say, music or chemistry at various places and some of the modern languages. And so they're going to lose that opportunity. But also in terms of the numbers we're talking about, clearly there's going to be larger class size with what's left over. They're going to do more with less and continue that. So they're going to see effects on class size. There's also the part of what's being cut is academic support services, which are those areas that help people, whether it's counseling or with extra tutoring in subjects. And we live in an era, as you know, where administrators talk about retention a lot and hanging on to the students you have and first to second year retention. And students are going, I think, struggle more with that, and institutions are going to struggle more with that because those support services are being cut in a lot of these retrenchments.
Well, the state system of higher education has a new chancellor now, Chancellor Brogan. He comes in at a very interesting time, of course, and he has been saying that retrenchment, our new word, our word of the day, is a necessity, and that there has to be some sort of realignment of programs. Do you agree? What do you think?
I think it's very interesting that Chancellor Brogan started October 1st and didn't really take a listening tour and didn't have much of a honeymoon, but jumped right into the fray. I think, you know, as an English professor, you just asked me to define the word retrenchment. I want to define the word necessity. To retrench faculty, we think that the university should show that they're an extremist for a period of time, that they have no money in the bank, and we're not seeing that. So when he says necessity, well, he's from Florida, and you know they have a different dynamic than we do. I think maybe his necessity and my necessity aren't quite the same thing. The program alignment wording is interesting too, because I'm always challenged again as an English professor to understand what it means. What are we aligning with? Obviously, we've heard a lot over the last year and a half from people like the governor's post-secondary commission that met last summer about needing certain jobs being filled, and we haven't been doing it. So that seems to be where they're directed. But I've seen the list they keep coming up with, and it's really not a sustainable list. I mean, how many advanced manufacturing people are we going to hire in the Commonwealth? I mean, we have 115,000 students. We need to talk about, you know, a broad base in terms of education and talk about people who can survive the fact that most people change careers 3 to 5 times these days. We need to have them educated so they don't have to go back to school every time. So we need a broad education. I keep hearing from business leaders. I read an article every week from somebody saying, I want somebody with critical thinking skills, writing skills, communication skills, group work skills. We need those kinds of things.
Well, employers want to do their own training.
Right.
The specifics of their, yeah.
Exactly. They want somebody with those kinds of skills,
Right.
but if they have something specific, it's not going to be prepared before they get there. They're going to do it in-house once they get there.
Right.
So I find the program alignment stuff seems to be rhetoric that I'd really like to know what it meant. So that's a challenge in these times.
Well, Steve, we've talked about this before in the past when you've been here and when other educational leaders have been here, and we've been talking about higher education. With higher education, it seems higher education isn't supposed to be a for-profit enterprise. You're not supposed to lose money, and I'm a big supporter of economy and efficiency and effectiveness, but on the other hand, it seems so long as you're not losing money, the job of a university, isn't it, is to prepare young people for their career and for life, and to preserve civilization and pass on civilization. So if you're cutting all of your music programs, your foreign languages programs, your philosophy programs, how is that preserving civilization for future generations?
Well, that's a pretty broad question, but that is a great point, Charlie, that those are majors that are at the core of what we think of as higher education. And at this point, the institutions, I haven't named them, from East Stroudsburg on the eastern side of the state to Edinburgh on the western side of the state, every place north of I-80, we're losing music programs, we're losing philosophy, we're losing chemistry, we're losing German and French. The only language most of them will be teaching is Spanish. So we're going to lose all that in terms of our culture and the educated nature of our populace. We're not going to have people who know these things, and it's going to change the nature of what we're going to be able to do for employers in the Commonwealth, because they're going to come in, they're going to want college-educated people with a wide background, with all those skills we talked about, critical thinking and communication skills. And my best example of this that's concerned everybody for years is how many education majors we have. And when I started 6 years ago, the statistic that got cited over and over again was 1 in 3 teachers leaves teaching in their first 3 years.
Wow.
You think about that number, it's a massive number. The turnover, people get into it, and for all sorts of reasons, they don't stay, all right? Those people aren't all in the unemployment line. Amazingly enough, you hear you hear people in the job market say, we want those skills. Those people have organization skills, they have communication skills, they're used to working in groups, they have all those skills, even if they did have that major and it doesn't seem to be, oh man, we don't have enough teaching jobs. And Governor Corbett cut the budget $1 billion 2 years ago for K through 12. And what do we have, 30,000 fewer teachers than we did 2 years ago? So there are fewer jobs, but people with those skills still have marketable sets of skills that people want. And I think that's been proven over and over again, that those kinds of core skills are what we need to be training people in. We'll have a better Commonwealth and a better economy because of it in the long run.
Well, where do we go from here? We're finishing out 2013. Sounds like 2014 is going to start with you doing battle on the budget front and having to deal with all the cuts, the retrenchments. What happens now?
I think a big challenge in higher ed these days is the message we're talking about today, and Charlie pointed out about economies. It's not supposed to be for profit. It's supposed to be a public good. Everybody's chipping in because when students graduate with a college education, they ended up not going to prison as much, they don't use as much health care, they pay more taxes, they're healthier, they vote more. All those positives it helps us as a society, and we need to be educating more people and not less. We need to be investing more in higher education and not less, because the money you get back in an investment is multifold. So we need to push that message, and what's been lost the last handful of years in the austerity budgets is that investment, that need for investment. We've been, cut, and we've been held at level funding, and I think we need the legislature and the governor to start talking about we need to invest in higher ed, because if not, the states around us who are investing more in higher ed are going to go past us and become the places businesses are going to go.
No, it seems to be conventional wisdom that in a time of economic downturn, you invest in education.
And we didn't do it in this downturn. We cut. We're like 45th in the nation in terms of what we've been putting into higher education the last few years.
Well, Steve, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for updating our viewers, and we look forward to your next visit. We'll be right back with our next guest on Behind the Headlines.